I be sparking and rushing mad like inside the dark. Call me Bill Snatcher, just a brother for the rapture. I hang live, holding on strong, hard to capture. Extravagant, resurrect the track and it's militant. And I react like a convict and start killing. It's manifesting. The gods work like appliances, dealing in my cycle a lot.
Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another discussion for Boruto Naruto Next Generations, the manga. And for anime only fans, this is the time of the month where a lot of the content we talk about here on the channel is going to be spoiler heavy. However, if you're still here, I'm assuming you guys are all caught up with the Boruto manga and you do not care about me talking about spoilers, or in this case speculative theories that are based off of stuff that takes place in the manga. So with that being said though, let's jump right into the actual discussion. So diving right in, I think that we actually, in this last chapter, Boruto chapter 61, I think we've actually been shown the weakness for Ada's ability. And I'm gonna say right now, it is so simple that it's actually brilliant. I think that her Senrigan, for as overpowered as it is the embodiment of what Itachi Uchiha told Naruto back during the 4th Great Ninja War, which is the fact that no matter how overpowered a jutsu is, no matter how deadly it is, it has a weakness. You just have to stay calm and you have to observe and you will find the weakness. Well, in the last chapter, you had this moment to where Daemon was sitting there about to spill the beans on everything, and Ada tells Daemon, do not reveal our secrets. And the way that I kind of talked about it, I said, well, in part 1 of Naruto, that's what Zabuza got on to Kakashi about. He said, well, if you show me your Sharingan more than once, I'm going to figure out a way to actually combat it. And that's exactly what Zabuza did. And his way of combating the Sharingan, again, it was so simple that it was actually brilliant. Well, I think that because we've seen Ada multiple times where she's relayed information, where she's used her Senrigan, I think that this last chapter finally gave us the information we need on what her weakness is and why Ada shut Daemon up when Daemon was about to explain not only how his weakness worked, but also potentially Ada's weakness. Well, I think that when you look at chapter 61, the first thing that should stand out is the fact that Ada's eyes look different. And that panel was drawn very well, but when you look at the way that her eyes are drawn here, one of the things that you actually notice is that there's kanji around her eyes, and typically when Kishimoto's done something like that in the past, when he's had the kanji around the eyes, that's usually been when he's shown that something was being activated. Well, with the character Ada, one of the things we see is that when she's using her Senrigan, her left eye, the sclera, turns black, and you also see that she's got dots on her eyes, and that's kind of something to where when you look at the pun, Ada Lovelace and the whole thing with technology, those dots could be something as simple as just as you have like the ... that shows up when people are typing and everything, that could be something where she's processing the information. All of a sudden that crescent moon and the sclera of her eye turning black, I think that that is your sign right there. Okay, like she's actually using the actual ability. And I think the reason why that is potentially huge and why that is potentially one of the actual weaknesses of the Senrigan is that it's a situation where that's something she has to activate, which means that it's not running at all times. And I know how she compared it, where she said that this was like having access to all the security cameras in the world, but look at the verbiage that she used. She said having access to all the security cameras, and then when she talked about going in the past, she said that she can pick specific scenes to look at in the past up to the point where she was actually born. The thing you have to kind of keep in mind with Ada is that she's not going to divulge everything to Code. It kind of goes back to what I've said when it comes to Amato. You have the whole narrator trope of the unreliable narrator. She's not going to give Code everything, and in some cases she's not going to tell Code the whole truth. And I'll even go a step further too. I think that there have actually been signs there that Ada's been withholding that information, that her ability isn't as cut and dry as what she told Code. And in a way, it kind of makes sense that this ability isn't running at all times. She wasn't technically lying to Code when she said that I can access any point in time that I want to view anything. I can see all things happening in the present. However, I think that this goes into the second point, which is I think that that ability can only be used at one specific moment at a time. And I think that there are signs for this. Every time that we've seen her, it's always been after she's used the power of the Senrigan. Think about it for a second. When she's talking to Code and she's telling Code what happened at the 5 Kage summit where Naruto and the rest of them, they're meeting via Zoom call. Look at her eyes. That crescent moon was not black. You did not see those actual dots on the side of her eyes, those little 3 dots that, again, I think that that's symbolic for data processing. And going a step further, I think that this is a lot like the Mangekyo Sharingan, where each eye has a different ability. So that left eye, if you look at it, that's the only one that has the black sclera, and that's the only one where the crescent moon actually turns black. I think that that's the eye that she uses when she's looking into the actual present. I think that when you get to that right eye, the right eye is when she goes back and she looks at everything that happens in the past. Those are your signs right there that it wasn't active, and then even if it was active, that was something that she herself could only go one scene at an actual time. Every time that we've seen her when she's relayed information to Code about what's happened, it's always been after the fact. So earlier on in the chapter, in chapter 57, the Kages are meeting, and they were very deliberate to where when we saw Ada was away from Code and different events have actually transpired, and then she comes in and she tells them everything that happened well after the fact. You have to look at the chapter very closely. When Ada was talking in present tense saying that the Kages are discussing ways to actually track you down and trap you, that moment had already happened. Naruto, when Ada's having that conversation with Code, Naruto speaking to Amato. The 5 Kage summits already happened, which means that more than likely, while Ada was in that bathroom and she was brushing her teeth, if you look at it, when she's brushing her teeth in the bathroom, they're very careful not to show us that other eye until after Ada finished brushing her teeth. I think during that time, Ada was either using the Senrigan ability to see into the past to see what the Kages had done prior, or she was using it in real time to be able to see what the Kages were talking about in that actual instance right there. And I want to go a step further. So I've said before that potentially it's like the Mangekyo Sharingan where each eye has a different ability, but you also have the potential possibility that that Senrigan ability is only concentrated in one eye, and that Ada can't run both of them at the same time, but instead she has to switch between. So she's either got to see into the past or she's got to see into the present. But in either instance, that eye has to be activated. When you look at it, after we see her in the mirror, that's when we see both of her eyes, and you don't see all that black ink that was done for this most recent chapter for multiple panels after we saw that the eye was active. But she spoke in present tense for an event that happened in the actual past, because again, she's playing mind games with Code. She's not telling him everything, and an advantage like that is something you want to keep to yourself. In this chapter right here, this is the first time where we've seen a constant where, again, the sclera is black, the crescent moon in that eye is black, and we know for a fact that she was watching everything in real time, giving Code real time updates on what was going on. Those other times, she's telling Code what happened after something took place. By Ada's own admittance, she's somebody that has a short attention span. Most of the time when she sees stuff, she gets bored. But you also have to keep in mind, when you look at the panel, Ada does not directly answer Code right away when Code says, could you watch them at any time when you want to? And in the panel directly underneath that, you see Code, where Code has the questioning look underneath, and you see the actual speech bubble where it has the dots inside of it. The foreshadowing's been there all along that Ada hasn't been upfront with them on how her abilities work, that she's covering up multiple weaknesses. Think about it. She can only see things one scene at an actual time. She can't watch all the cameras all at once. Proof of this comes from the fact that she didn't tell Code that Amato is working on a cyborg. It's in her best interest to disclose that information to Code because Ada wants to kill Amato, but there's no interest in actually keeping tabs on Amato right now when the first thing they're focusing on is getting Kawaki and Boruto. The other thing you have to keep in mind also is that she told Code, like, yo, Kawaki's on the move, but she didn't say anything about Sasuke because she's not watching Sasuke. That is one of the weaknesses of her Senrigan, one scene at a time. She has access to all the scenes, but she can only look at one camera angle at a time. But I do think this was a very deliberate choice right here to actually show us that she's relaying all that stuff in real time as it's going on. Now, I think that there's one more weakness to the actual Senrigan. So we've already established that potentially Senrigan is something that has to be activated. It's not something that's running on autopilot 24/7. We potentially established that the Senrigan is something that can only see one scene at a time or one security camera at a time, to use Ada's example. And the same thing when she goes in the past. And then we've also established that with the Senrigan that she can't do both at the same time. It has to be either or. And that brings me to what I think the final weakness is. I think that Ada, while she can see everything that's happening in real time, Ada cannot actually have access to people that can speak telepathically. So people like the Yamanaka clan who can use their jutsu to speak to one another, I don't think Ada has access to that type of information. Think about it. When she was talking about she knew that Code was going to come, she didn't say that I knew for certain you're coming. She said call it female intuition. So just to recap to make it easier to kind of follow, like I've said before, the Senrigan, I believe that it has to be active because it's not something that's running autonomously. I think that the Senrigan is something to where the ability to look into the past or the ability to look into the present is either something that is a power split between the two eyes, or it's a power that she can't activate and do both at the same time. It has to be one or the other. And I do believe that she cannot actually access any type of information that is sent telepathically. And the final weakness of the Senrigan is I think that she can only view things one scene at a time or one camera angle at a time. So I'm curious to know what you guys think about this. Right now, I'm at a 6.5, moving towards a 7 right now because there have been a lot of breadcrumbs dropped for the character Ada. However, I want to know what you guys think. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.